Hello, BookTube. I'm Peg, the Book Prize Addict. Welcome to my channel. I want to give a special welcome to some new subscribers I picked up this weekend after two charming English gentlemen booktubers gave me a shout out. That's Dave of Wild Reads and Steve Partridge. I really appreciate it, guys, and I enjoy watching both those channels a lot. There's something quite ironic about the description they gave of me, which I'll get to later after I explain some other things a little bit. Okay, first of all, I need to confess to the fact that I am a total Anglophile. Now, if you don't know what Anglophile is, it's a good thing. It's the anonym would be Anglophobe, but an Anglophile is a person who admires England, its people, and its culture. That's me. I love anything English. Okay, this term, Anglophile, was first used in 1864 when Charles Dickens, no less, used it in his serial publication. He had a British literary magazine that came out periodically that he also put his novels in. His novels were serialized, but he actually in this case used it in talking about a French publication that it had seemed to be Anglophilic. Anyway, now I'm not sure if there's a lot of Anglophiles in the French now, in France. Or maybe, I don't know, but it's mainly, I believe, an American syndrome. We all of a sudden just love English accents. We have some newscasters that are English, have that lovely English accent, and we all just love it. Anyway, but I especially have loved everything literary in English for all the years I've been reading. I love to read books that take place in England. I love the history of England. I even like to read about the colonial period, which probably isn't real politically correct these days, but I love to read about English people in strange places, and I especially love the habit or whatever it is of having tea in the afternoon. Every book I read, well, older books I'd say before 1960, everything would stop for people to relax and have tea, and it sounds like you have such wonderful things to eat with your tea. I mean, I always wondered, do you eat later after having that huge tea? Is there another meal before you go to bed? I know in Barbara Penn novels there's a lot of having beans on toast. Is that still a thing for evening meal? Anyway, I'm going to try it. Sounds good. Actually, and I do have tea every afternoon, though I'm not sure if it counts when you use tea bags. I'm sure the pure English way is not to use tea bags, but oh well. Anyway, since I've gotten on BookTube, I subscribe to a lot of English booktubers, British, I guess, and I just love the way they talk. I feel like if I listen enough, pretty soon I'll be talking like that. Have that wonderful accent, but I'm not so sure that you can catch it that easy. Like, for instance, Eric Carl Anderson. He's an American, and he's been in England for years. It sounds like he still sounds very American to me. So it may be impossible to pick it up if you're not born into it. So anyway, but I was just delighted when these charming Englishmen on BookTubers recommended me. And you know what was really funny is both of them made the comment that they like my accent. An English person likes my accent? Oh, I was just delighted. Those guys are so charming. Anyway, but I have to admit, I kind of, American is pretty homogenized anymore as far as accents go. But there's one place you still stands out, and that's in the South, mainly the Southeast part. That's in like William Faulkner territory and the Taylor all of a sudden I've lost my, oh, Flannery O'Connor. That's who, because I have to admit, when I was quite young, 100 years ago or so, I actually lived in the very south of Georgia, a very southern state, for just a few years. My family moved there, but it was enough for me to pick up a what they call southern drawl that I evidently have never lost, because that must be what they're talking about when they talk about me having an accent, and I'm not even conscious of it, and Americans hardly even notice it anymore. So it's interesting that it would take two Englishmen to notice that. I have to say also, those Englishmen are so charming. They both mentioned that while I might be a little older than the average booktuber, I have a lot to contribute because of all the books I've read. Now, is that not nice or not? I think they value older people more there. So anyway, okay. So I'm not all going to go on about that anymore. I'm going to, since this is a prize channel, I'm going to talk a little bit about book prizes, but of course, I'm going to talk about my very favorite one, the Man Booker Prize. And I've talked before about how the 50th anniversary is coming up this year, and they're planning great festivities in London in July, and they have even a challenge out to read all the, well, it's actually 52 Booker winners through the years. And I finally received, I had to send to England for it, my Man Booker Prize diary, and it's fantastic. It's got every winner and the year and little tidbits about each one, and the original book cover, which it's just so fun. Now, as a treat to myself, since I love reading English novels so much, I've ordered the first, I'll say, 25 of them used. I can't get them in the library here anymore. They're not on Kindle. They haven't had anyway, they don't have that version. So I've just decided to treat myself, and I've ordered most of them quite cheaply, and I think some of them are coming from England. But I'm going to allow myself to just immerse myself in older English novels. Those are the ones I really like, that from the 70s and 80s. And just tell you a little bit about the ones I'm reading now. I'm not really going to read them in any order, just what looks good to me and what I want to read. Okay, I first read the second winner. It's called The Elected Member by Bernice Rubens, who I hadn't heard of before. And actually, I have to say, this book kind of shows its age. It deals with a son, a young man in a family who's a lawyer and doing very well in his career, though he does still live at home with his parents, which there's a little bit of friction there. But he gets addicted to some kind of pills, drugs, and acts crazy, sees weird things when he's coming down off of them, sees bugs, etc. And they know he's on pills, but they seem to think that his mental state is what's the real problem. So they send him to what's then called a lunatic asylum. And what happens to him there, he still manages to get his pills, but both the mental illness and the people there with mental illness, that's kind of treated in a dated way, you might say, from how we talk about it now. And also his drug addiction. They seem to think there's a reason for that, a psychological reason, rather than he just tried them and he liked them. And but it's interesting to see how things like that were treated differently. This was in 1970. It was the winter in 1970. And it's still very English. I got a lot of interesting things that they always manage to have a little bit of witty humor in them, which I love about British novels, even if they're nominally serious. I'm reading. I like to read several at the same time. I'm also reading Penelope Lively's Moon Tiger, which won the award in 1986. Now, I wanted to read this. I don't think I've ever read anything by her before, but I get mixed up with another Penelope Fitzgerald, and so I wanted to distinguish the two. Now, this Penelope is definitely the more literary one, and this one, Moon Tiger, deals with the story of an old woman in kind of a rest home situation, and it's told through her eyes. She is a writer, and supposedly she's writing a history of the world, though as she talks it becomes more of a history of her life and all the things that have happened in it. And it's different, but really interesting. That's what I like about reading Through the Winters, is that they're all so different, and especially being written over 50, well, no, not quite 50 years ago, they give me another picture of England that I probably wouldn't see if I went there now. And lastly, I'm reading The Old Devils by Kingsley Amis, which again is about a group of older people who knew each other in their youth and had some wild times, and they get together again. And it's really has a lot of humor in this about these old people and their relationships, etc. Now, Kingsley Amis is the father of Martin Amis, who is a quite well-known author in England even today. So I don't think Martin Amis has won a Booker, but it would be interesting to have a father and son win them. Okay. One more thing about the Booker Prize. I've put a link. There has been yet another article in The Guardian about the fact that so many people would rather the Booker Prize not include American novels, which, as you probably know, they started doing in 2014, and since then two American novelists have taken the prize, which I can't argue with that, but I think many of us feel that we'd rather see they call it the Booker dozen, which is 13 books on the long list. We'd rather it be new ones that we don't know about that they found in the British, I guess you call it Commonwealth, rather than American ones that we've already heard of, we know about. They have plenty of chances to win prizes. So anyway, but this article I'm linking talks about a letter that I guess 30 publishers have gotten together and advocated that they drop Americans from the Booker Prize. So interesting. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that or any of this. Okay, and thanks again for this shout out, you charming Englishmen.